All right, guys, welcome back to Better Odds Sports Betting. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill.
This is Kyle Hunter.
And we have a special guest today, Mr. Tony George from DocSports.com and from the lovely state of Nebraska. Tony, what's been happening, my man? Thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Of course, I've been a fan of Kyle's forever. Kyle used to be on my old website back before I joined Docs, and always enjoyed Kyle's prowess in all sports, especially his college basketball and his totals. And, of course, Kiev, we've done a couple of shows together. And from the great state of Nebraska, but now residing in lovely Las Vegas, and I'm sure enjoying the weather a lot more than they are back in Lincoln and Omaha today. I can tell you that much.
I could bet, man. And thank you to the Cornhuskers for down 20 points within 3 minutes. They made it a 9-point game, which barely got my spread a couple days ago. So thank you to Nebraska for showing up here. But we have a lot of games to talk about. We have a great show, and we have a few listener requests. So let's get right into it, guys. What do you think?
Sure.
All right, so from Hockey Mania, we have a big game tonight. I think it's a big game because it's Maction, and we love Maction. Now we got some Maction on Friday night, right? Maction is great stuff, and we have two high-flying teams, Toledo versus Buffalo. Buffalo is going to be around a pick-em-ish. Actually, this morning I looked, it was about a -1.5, -2. The total in this, I wrote down when I prepared this, was 159, but when the lines come out, this thing's going to be bought up a little bit, 163-ish. Starting to get a little high, but I did prepare this one, so for Hockey Mania, I'm glad to answer it. As far as speed, Buffalo, super fast, 14.5 seconds per possession is just light speed, right? And their defense has been better, but it's still been a little suspect. 101st on KenPom, they moved up to. Toledo was the force in the MAC for a long time, but from a what have you done for me lately perspective, they lost 2 of their 3 last games here. There is an edge in this game, in my opinion. I think that Buffalo does a really good job against three-pointers. If you look on some of the against three-point stats, Buffalo stops 26.4%. That's 4th in the nation. Now, I know the MAC isn't that great at shooting three-pointers, so you have to put that into consideration. But the fact that Toledo relies on them and they shoot it 46% of the time, it gives me a little bit of an edge for Buffalo here. So from a pure numbers perspective, I have Buffalo winning 83-81, but I think the three-pointers give them a little edge here. So I'll take Buffalo up to 3 points, guys. I don't know if you had any time to look at that, Kyle. What do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, first, I tend to want to bet an over when these two teams play, but 163, 164, I have to pass. You're not going to make a good living betting totals over 164 in college basketball. All it takes is one slump, one bad shooting stretch, and you're not going to get to that number. So I agree with the line move from 159 up to 164, but I'm going to pass on it now. If I had to bet a side here, I would bet Buffalo in this one. This is not a strong play for me. Nothing that stands out to me. I won't be betting this game personally.
Yeah, and Tony, I'm guessing you probably haven't had time to jump on. You've been so busy today.
Well, anytime, pretty much Kyle hit the nail on the head. Anytime you get around 164, 165, anytime you get over 160, really, especially this time of year. And I think tonight, last night kind of showed a little bit. This weekend's going to show it a little bit. Things aren't exactly what they seem. It's that time of year where the noose gets a little tighter. People are jockeying not only for conference tournament seeds, but also NCAA tourney seeds. And think they play a little tighter to the vest this time of year. And you have a lot of head scratchers when you see the final scores, late February, early March. And the only way I could look at this game, they waxed Toledo last time they played them. They beat the hell out of them. Which was a little bit of a surprise to me because Toledo, if they get hot, they can play with anybody. But they rely solely on the three. I would look at the under here. That would be the only lean I would give it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The under is probably the best look because at this point of the year, just like Tony said, these teams are going to tighten up, but they're going to try to play a little defense. They're going to be a little bit more careful when it comes to turning the ball. So no disagreement here. Tony, you've been I've been listening to you for years before you've come in on some of my shows, and you've been such a fantastic expert in the Big 12, being from Big 12 country when Nebraska was in the Big 12, and you seem to study these teams very well. So I think this first game kind of is right up your alley a little bit. West Virginia versus Texas. And my numbers, well, actually Ken Palms has it. I think Texas around a 1 or a 2 point favorite, I believe, maybe a total around 148. Let's get started with some of your thoughts on this game.
Well, one thing about West Virginia this year, two things about this game here. First of all, they're avenging a home loss where they're a 1.5 point favorite and they got beat 72-70 against Texas. And since then, Texas right now has been on not in good form. They're 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games. If you take a look at their schedule, anybody they played that was any good recently, they lost to Oklahoma State, they lost to Baylor. I'll give them that. They lost to Oklahoma and Texas Tech. Everybody else they beat up all the weak sisters. They come up against anybody stiff, and they have problems. And they're only 3-2 against the spread at home and 7-4 at home. Which usually you'll see a dominant home court advantage in the Big 12. It's one of those when you go on the road in the Big 12, just plan on them getting beat. Even Kansas in many regards, even when Kansas isn't the Kansas they have been the last 10 years this year for various reasons. But at the end of the day here, if you take a look at that last game, West Virginia only shot 39% from the floor and still only lost by 2. They hit 30% from 3-point range and 65% in free throws that game. The one thing about West Virginia, they're not really good at they're not really great at anything, but they're good at everything. And that's just a well-coached Bob Huggins team. And I will be on a Bob Huggins team tomorrow with revenge off a home loss against a Texas team that is completely inconsistent. Remember, you're catching a Bob Huggins team off a 1-point overtime loss against Oklahoma at home, 91-90 ball game, where they played absolutely zero defense in that game for whatever reason. And I expect them to come out here and get the job done against Texas. I really do, especially with the short number, especially if you can be catching points here. You probably can also rely on again, we talked about this total should be around 138 to 140. If you get it, if this touches 140, you definitely want to take the under. If it gets below 138, that's just a couple of points, Tony. That doesn't mean anything. Well, yeah, it does. It means everything. But if this gets around 140, you might want to be taking a look at the under. And I think it might, even be higher than that because I think West Virginia will come out. They'll play some defense and be very physical. And you'll notice physical teams against Texas, they've had trouble with. You take a look at their last – some of the teams they played that were physical. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma are all physical and all gave Texas problems. And I think Huggy Bear will go in there and make it kind of a blue-collar workman's type ball game and grind it out and make them earn every shot. And I think West Virginia is going to come out victorious tomorrow.
Well, I think you're going to like the over then, Tony, because, according to Ken Palm, it says 148, right?
Yeah. And, I like the under there.
Yeah.
You get me at 148. I've got this rated at 139.5.
The first game went to 142.
Yeah.
And so that's more towards up your I remember last second shot, right? Andrew Jones won that thing on the last second shot. And I'll tell you right now, I had Texas on the money line. And so when that thing happened, I was installing a new receiver and I almost bumped my head through the wall when he hit that shot. It was pretty exciting, but these two teams have the same thing in common. They both haven't played since last Saturday, and both of them lost to Oklahoma. I don't know how the hell that happened because I was on West Virginia last weekend and I was pretty bummed out. When a game to 40 seconds left, they're up 2 points. They come back, right? What do? Miss both free throws. As soon as they missed both free throws, Tony, I knew my -2.5 was completely shot. Took double overtime, and they ended up losing that game. I think I think their defense has to show up this game, and I wish Texas isn't off such a bad streak. I would have. I'm a little worried that Texas could jump up a little bit and play a little bit out of their minds, being they're at home here. But I know West Virginia is the better all-around team, better defense anyway. But I tried to find a good angle in this game, and I couldn't. So I'm going to go with what you said here, Tony, and possibly look at the under here. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for this one, I think there's several things that go into this. We've got a Texas team that won that first game, and they were pretty fortunate to win that first game. It was 70-65 West Virginia with a minute and a half left in that game. West Virginia didn't score the rest of that game. So if you were ever going to find a good spot for revenge, you would think this would be it, because West Virginia, heartbreaker. Look, I don't think Shaka Smart's a bad coach. I think that he, was really good at VCU, hasn't done as well as people had hoped at Texas. But I think Bob Huggins is a better coach than Shaka Smart. And Huggins teams late in the year tend to play pretty well. You get a Bob Huggins team that's coming off that loss earlier in the year, and then they lost in overtime. Like you said, this is a team that should be highly motivated coming off that double overtime loss. I think we'll probably be able to get plus 1.5 or something like that here on West Virginia. I think the line could move in West Virginia's favor here because Texas has played poorly. Obviously, there's been a lot of bad weather in Texas this week. Teams from there haven't really played here for quite a while. Texas has been off this week. They were supposed to play. You could say that helps in this handicap as well, because there's been a lot going on down there. So I think West Virginia is in a better situational spot than is Texas. If I had to bet the total, I'd bet the under, but I think I like West Virginia plus 1.5 or something like that the best in this game.
Well, one thing, too, I was going to reiterate, bring up was, notoriously Bob Huggins' teams have not been expert three-point shooting teams by any stretch of the imagination. And this year, for whatever reason, they're getting some really, really good guard play. And they are a lot better this year hitting three-point shots, playing from beyond the arc in their perimeter game. And I think that if they heat it up a little bit, that's going to give Texas a lot of problems as well.
All right.
I agree. This West Virginia team is much better on offense than they've been in the past. Usually you think of them as just a defensive team, and you hope they can throw in some shots. This year, maybe not quite as good on defense as some of the other years, but they're far better on offense than they have been.
Yeah, McBride's been playing very well, and once he gets hot, it's all over for whoever they're playing. So I agree with you there. Well, we'll be watching this spread for sure. Obviously, if this gets to 3 Texas, it's an auto play on West Virginia for me. That's how close this game should be. Let's move on to the next one then. Let's get to the Pac-12. We never talk about the Pac-12. For all you West Coast people, it's time to give it a little love, because there's a team that I like in the Pac-12, and they've been just on fire lately, and that is the USC Trojans, man. You look at them. They're fast. They're tall. Playing some great ball. God, did I want Arizona to beat UCLA, because I wanted to beat – I mean, this would have made this game so much sweeter. But Arizona got their butt kicked, so this spread is probably going to be a little bit higher than I predict. I wrote down USC -7, but I can see this being the USC -8, -9 after that last performance, which is a little bit of a bummer for me. But the Trojans have been winning by double digits the last 4 games. On KenPom, they snuck all the way up to 12. Quietly, they're 14-7 ATS this year. Quietly for a lot, maybe not for some. Whoever's been betting USC has been cashing. But they're going to be dancing this March. And on the last podcast I was on, I gave out them at 50-1 to win the NCAA tournament, because you can make some money off that ticket. Yeah, 50-1 still. So value there. I think they're definitely a Sweet 16 type team, and that's where you might want to start hedging. It depends upon the matchup. But one thing I noticed is that Arizona plays a bit faster than their tempo shows. They rank 201st in adjusted tempo on KenPom, but they actually seconds per game is much faster than that. I believe ranking more in the 100 area. So I looked at that. Now I look at the Wildcats. They have to be desperate to score some points. Wildcats have a terrible defense, but they still rank really high on offense in the top 15-ish, top 20, I believe, on KenPom there too. So I have this a high scoring game, and I have Arizona losing 78-69. these are one of those spreads that there could be some foul city at the end too. If you're getting between 5 and 7, they might start fouling with a minute left. I think this has a great chance to go over. So right now I'm looking at the over here. Let's see what your thoughts are, Kyle.
Yeah, so for this one, I'd rather bet USC in this one than anything else. Like you know, it would have been nice if Arizona hadn't just totally collapsed the last few games, because now perception on them is so low that, you know, I don't know if we can get a -7 like Ken Palm has here. You know, so if it's -7, don't you think everybody's going to want to bet USC in this one? So, you know, if it was -7, I'd bet USC here. I think USC is a much better team than Arizona. You know, I understand where you're coming from with the 50-1 on USC. The Pac-12 is really bad, and I'm concerned that, you know, playing them in the Pac-12 is a pretty big negative for going into the big dance. But I mean, I think that's a pretty fair price on USC. They have top talent, big guys down low to block shots. This is not a great offensive team usually, but Arizona's been really weak on defense this year. You usually think of Miller's teams being really good on defense, not this season. I'm going to lean to the over here as well. I like USC minus the points better than anything else in this game.
All right. Any thoughts, Tony?
Well, I'm going to go against Kyle. I think this is going to open up at 8 or 9, and if it does, I'm going to be all over Arizona. And I know that we're talking about an Arizona team that got their ass handed to them last night by UCLA. We're also talking about an Arizona team, and what I like to do, and I'm sure Kyle does this too, you can look at season-long stats all you want for your handicap, but you want to look at right here, right now. Teams are very cyclical when you're playing 2 or 3 games a week, and they go into good cycles and bad cycles. So I like to look at the last 5-game stats kind of to see where they're at, where they're playing right now. And obviously USC is playing at a very, very high level. But you have an Arizona team that's off a bad loss. They're scoring 65 and allowing 70 their last 5. That is a recipe for disaster. I mean, no doubt about it. Conversely, USC scoring 74 and only giving up 60. USC is winning games by playing great defense. I mean, they have really stepped it up defensively, and they're going to have to step it up defensively and keep that under 65 in order for them to beat anybody outside of the Pac-12 when you're talking about your 50-1 bet. Because Kyle alluded to something that only raises a red flag on USC being a Final Four team, is the Pac-12 is pretty damn weak this year. Overall, you look at the Power 5 conferences; they're not up in the top 3, that's for sure. But that being said, you have the number 1 and number 2 ranked offenses in the conference when it comes to efficiency ratings, which is, you know, giving you cause for concern. I understand Arizona is on a 1-4 straight up an ATS slide here, but they played UCLA last night. They're sequestered in a hotel room. They're sequestered to the ballroom where Sean Miller has access to them 24/7 because they didn't travel back home to go play tomorrow. So I think he'll have them dialed in. The one thing that concerns you if you want to back Arizona, and it does concern me a little bit, and that is Sean Miller is a very good basketball coach, and he gave Arizona a lot of problems with recruiting violations, and they still kept him around when most schools would have fired him. You know, they kept him around because he's a damn good basketball coach and he can recruit talent. I don't think he's got anybody to go up against the Mobley guys, but at the end of the day here, I think although USC's 11-1 at home straight up, I think Arizona could come in here and give them a ball game. And I think they'll hang around this ball game. If I wanted to lay points with USC, I think maybe out of the gate till Arizona gets your sea legs in them, maybe take a look at a first half line and cut it in half. Maybe lay 4.5 with USC in the first half. And I think Arizona's going to make a game of it. They really have to, you know, I mean, because, you know, for them, you know, who'd have thought that you'd see Arizona this time of year, if they lose this game, end up being 1-5, you know, straight up and against the spread here. But if this thing's 8 or higher, I'm going to take a look at Arizona to keep it close. You know,
some of those points is why I like the over, but I got to tell you,
I don't think USC is going to lose the game. But if there's an overreaction to what, you know, odds makers know one thing: sports bettors only remember what they saw last game. No team is as good as they were last game, or no team is as bad as they were last game. And Arizona was about as bad as you can get. And basically, they kind of threw in the towel against USC if you watch that game. And I think maybe down the stretch here over the next 48 hours, Sean Miller's going to get those boys up and say, we can either give up or fight. And I think you'll see a good effort out of Arizona in this game. And I think they'll be, like I said, if this opens up at 5.5 or 6, which it wouldn't, but if it would for some reason, I'd be all over USC. You get around 8.5, 9, I'm probably going to take a look at Arizona to cover a number.
I should have brought Bill Walton on this podcast to back me up for my 50-1 ticket here. He probably would have talked a little bit about like flowers and mountain biking and bees and stuff. But either way, when can you get a top of the Power 5 team at 50-1?
You can't.
Think about that.
No, you can't.
You can't. And I don't. In of course, the Pac-12 is not the best conference, but at the same time, USC's playing some dang good ball. And you guys may be more excited for this game. I love the fact that you guys are going on a little crossfire here. I think it's perfect. It just makes it more exciting for me. I'm going to stick with my overplay here, but I think the proper spread is 7 personally. So I'm going to sit here right in the middle and watch this one. But this is going to make a statement for one of these teams. This game right here is going to be exciting, and I can't wait to see it. Let's move on to another Big 12 game. We have, this is also by listener request from Hokie Nation. We have Kansas hosting Texas Tech here. And this came in right before, obviously we came on. So I didn't get a huge chance to look at it. I know, Kansas went on a nice little run, beat up some of the little children of the poor there with, Kansas State, of course, and Iowa State beat them up pretty well. They covered there, and, Kansas probably thinking that they're right back in it. But here's Texas Tech here, and Texas Tech, very dangerous team. I'll tell you this, Mac McClung, what a fantastic transfer he's been in this year, coming from the Big East here at Georgetown. He was their best player. He couldn't play a lot last year because he had this eye trouble. But, the kid's just a straight up baller here, and he kind of fits in really well with Beard's offense. I love the fact that they're upsetting a few teams where they beat LSU, right? That was fun. They beat Oklahoma, which West Virginia and Texas couldn't figure that out. They seem to do that. Everyone lost to Baylor, but I'm not going to really hold that against them, but at least they kept it, somewhat respectable here. Just from the top level here, Kansas, little bit of a flawed team here. They don't shoot nearly as well as they used to shoot. What's funny is that their defense is better than their offense. When do you say that about a Kansas team? Is that, you look at them more towards their defense than their offense. But Texas Tech, just very efficient team, very great defensive team. Right now, it's going to be a close game. I'm going to give a lean to Texas Tech. And let's see what you have to say about that, Tony.
Well, I can't back Kansas the way they're playing right now. I mean, they just put up 59 points against the worst team in the Big 12. I just think Texas Tech's – I think Texas Tech's better basketball team. And Kansas doesn't have – number one is Kansas doesn't have a real playmaker on offense. They don't. Maybe Garrett, but they don't really have a real playmaker on offense. They don't have a real – 3-point threat.
Garrett's so hot and cold too,
isn't it? They are up and down. But the one thing about this game you might want to take a look at, because I'm not going to back. I mean, I took Kansas on Wednesday or Thursday night. I think Thursday night, and I laid 13 points with them just because Kansas State is so bad. And who'd have thought that I'd lay 13 points with a Power 5 team? They only score 59 points, and yet they cover
in a rivalry.
Yeah, in a rivalry game. That's the Sunflower Showdown there, being a Big 12 guy. I wouldn't be a bit surprised in this basketball game, and I'll bring Kyle in on this because he's really, of all the years that I've followed his prowess, he's one of the better college basketball total handicappers around. I don't see – this could be a game easily where neither team gets out of the 50s. It could be one of those ball games here. And if anything, I'd be looking at the under in this one, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean the first game between these two, 58-57, and the
Go.
total in that game was 135.5. Boy, I'd love to see a 135.5 again. I don't know if we'll get it based on what Kansas has done these last couple games. Like you said, I mean, they scored 59 at Kansas State and they scored 64 at Iowa State, and those are the two worst teams in this conference.
Yeah.
Bill Self has said recently, which I think he's right, that they have to win games with their defense now. They need to win games defensively. And I think he realizes that. They've even mixed in playing some zone defense, and that's not a Bill Self type of thing to do normally. So Kansas knows that they're not very good offensively. Texas Tech, I mean, Chris Beard's a tremendous coach. I had a guy on Twitter who was upset that he had lost his Texas Tech bet, one of the games before, saying Chris Beard's the most overrated coach. I don't think there's 5 coaches in the country that you could pick ahead of Chris Beard. And that's probably, I don't know if there's 3 that you'd pick ahead of him. So Beard's a really good coach. Self's a really good coach. Both of these two teams, I think both of these two teams are well coached, and defensively, I see this being, probably the total's got to come out a little bit lower than it did before. I mean, because everybody knows what Kansas has been doing lately. But, even at 133.5, 134, I still like the under a decent amount here in this one. There's nothing I could bet in this game other than the under. So I'm not betting aside. The under, definitely a possibility for me. Let's see what the odds makers put out.
Well, one thing Beard will do, Beard will play shutdown defense on you. He will play shutdown defense. As a matter of fact, he played shutdown defense against Baylor for about 3/4 of that game. I mean, they're capable of playing really, really good defense. So he's going to attack the weakness of Kansas as being a good coach as he is. I agree. He's top 5 coach in the country. And if he wants to, play into Kansas's weaknesses, we're just not going to let him score. We're just going to frustrate him in every turn. And Kansas doesn't match up well against these guys, offensively, pick and rolls, whatever you want to do. And the other thing that Kansas lacks, that has trouble with, if you step up to them again defensively, Kansas does not have great depth this year. And they get tired legs and they end up taking tired shots. And that's why they're not being able to score this year. They just don't have a prolific scorer, which is hard to – it's hard to say that about Bill Self and Kansas. They don't have a stud, a great point guard or a great shooting guard or a very power forward that's going for 17 and 10 a game and stuff like that. They just don't have that this year. And the under is the only way to look here. If this is around 133 or anywhere between 131 and 134, I definitely would take the under here, and I'd be pretty confident about it. You put this up 138, 140. I got some news for you over at Doc Sports. I got the Big 12 totals play of the year. So,
wishful thinking. It'd be great if they gave that to us. Hell, the under makes me like Texas Tech a little bit more, even because Kansas does try to speed it up when they're losing, which just gives more possessions to Texas Tech, right? So great call on that one. A few minutes left here, and we have Michigan versus Kyle Hunter's Ohio State Buckeyes. And being a Buckeye fan, how can I not start with Kyle on this one? Ohio State's going to be laying about 1 point from what I see. They covered last game. Michigan didn't. Total about 147. Kyle, have at it.
Yeah, I'll start with this one. Obviously I'm a big Ohio State fan. I'm always willing to bet against Ohio State if I think it's the better value. And I will say, in this one game, I don't have any strong play, but I am going to say, and if you're a Buckeyes fan out there and you're watching me, I apologize for saying that. I think this Ohio State team might be a bit overrated at this point. I think Chris Holtman's a really good coach, excellent coach, another one of the top 5 coaches in the country. But Ohio State's talent is not as good as some of these other teams that are up there in the top 5. If Ohio State, right now they're being projected as a 1 seed, they'd be one of the weaker 1 seeds I've seen. I think that Ohio State is not the type of team that can win the NCAA tournament. It pains me to say that, being a Buckeyes fan. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong, certainly. But in this game, Michigan, to me, has a higher upside than does Ohio State. Ohio State at home here in this one, a massive game. I tend to think the under could be my lean in this game as you get late in the season, and this is what Tony was alluding to earlier too. As you get later in the season, these games mean even more. You have to lean to the under because both these teams care a lot about this game. And look, Michigan playing Ohio State, both teams are going to care plenty about this game. You know, Ohio State coming off the really high-scoring game against Penn State, they're not going to see the same kind of defense that they did against Penn State with Michigan. I don't know that I have a strong play in this game, but I do think that Ohio State is a bit overvalued here. Ohio State also plays a really tough schedule here the rest of the way. So I'm not high on backing Ohio State the rest of the way. Michigan, to me, a team that is capable of winning the NCAA tournament if Dickinson's playing really well. Ohio State, I don't think they have that same high upside. So I don't have any strong opinion on this game. I lean to the under. KenPom has this 149. I think that's too high. I don't think it'll come out at that, 147.5, around that range. Kiev said, I think is more like it here.
Tony, anything before I play clean up here?
I had Ohio State last night. I mean, it's Penn State. I mean, they scored 60 against Nebraska the game before that. I mean, Nebraska got their first conference win against Penn State. So, and I thought that line was cheap last night on Ohio State. I thought it was cheap. But at the end of the day here, when Kyle's talking about defense and talking about a lower scoring game, Michigan's defense the last 5 games has allowed 60, Ohio State 70. There's the moral of the story right there. That's last 5-game defense. I mean, Michigan, I took them as a big play last Sunday, like a 6-unit top play against Wisconsin, when a lot of people thought, well, they've been off all that time because of the COVID. And in the first half, it took them a half to knock the rust off the engine, so to speak. But in the second half, it was the same old Michigan you'd seen all year. Tough defense, physical. They got going offensively. They distribute the ball extremely well. They have a much more balanced offensive game plan than what Ohio State does. Ohio State likes to shoot the long ball and get into a little bit more of a high-scoring game and trade punches. It's hard to take the under when you take a look at the last 5 games of this game, just because they're both in their last 5 games have knocked down 48% from the floor, and that's pretty good shooting percentage. But I think with a rivalry game like this and a lot on the line, and there's a lot of national implications in this game in terms of a NCAA tournament seedings, and they both know that. Their coaches know it. Their players know it. I think it's going to be a tight ball game. I'd lean under in this one, but if I can catch Michigan with any points at all, I'd probably take them.
All right. Well, Kyle, got a quick question for you. When you went to that Ohio State-Purdue game in football, did that go under?
Oh, here we go again. Tony, I went to the Ohio State-Purdue game for my wife and I's anniversary, that game when Purdue won at Purdue there a couple of years ago with Rondale Moore having a massive game. And, and every single show, Kiev has to bring this game up.
You brought it up last time.
Okay. So I brought it up just because I had to say that I had to heckle you a little bit because you do this with me. So again, I'm behind. I'm going to have to give Kiev a tough time next time, but maybe I'll have to bash Wisconsin in some way.
That's not hard right now, but anyway,
I know
I'll tell you, this line's going to be fun to watch. A lot of people like bird watching, people watching. I like watching lines sometimes, and I'm just going to get up early on Sunday and check this thing out, watch it bounce all over the place. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Kyle on this one. And this is the best game of the weekend for me, 100% here. I'm excited for this because AP ranking, I believe Michigan's 3, Ohio State's 4. I do think Ohio State's a little bit overrated. I do think Michigan is still slightly feeling that COVID pause. I mean, let's face it, Wisconsin choked that second half, and Rutgers is just not that good on the road, and there's not that good shooting.
Wisconsin chokes every game.
Michigan didn't cover, and it kind of – what's that?
I said Wisconsin chokes in every game. Anytime Wisconsin plays a top 5 team, if you're putting stock into that, then you're out of your mind.
Hey, take it easy here. I took the first half, by the way.
Look at this. I don't even have to bash Wisconsin. Tony's going to do it for me.
Look at that. Well, what I do kind of look at is the over, because both of these teams, they shoot extremely well. Michigan, 49.9%, and that's where they have Ohio State a little bit, but Ohio State's still 46.1%. And it's just such a big game for both of them. And these big games, I've been telling you, these Big Ten officials, they are not afraid to blow the whistle this year. And if you just want to see a Michigan State game, you'll notice that. A lot of people have been getting burned on those unders, including myself. But at the same time, I actually have Michigan winning this game by 76 to 75 points because Michigan, A, has the better defense, and it's going to have to travel, but defense travels on the road. And B, Michigan's just – there's Dickinson. There's no stopping that guy. 7-foot tree. I mean, in the middle. The guy's got in better shape than I ever thought. What a find for Michigan. They have great leadership and livers there. Juwan Howard's just doing a fantastic job. You know, Michigan's a basketball school now, I guess. And Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner's little brother, he's starting to really pick it up these games. He's hitting the three. This is a game I'm going to see Michigan, and I'll probably be on Michigan in the over. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Well, one thing I wanted to say, first of all, Kyle can feel at ease because whether he knows this or not, I'm a Husker. So as much as the Purdue loss hurts, you're kicking the crap out of my guys every time we show up there. So that being said, you'll feel good about that. And second of all, I wanted you both your opinions, and I did not know that Kyle was a Buckeye fan, and just like me, I'm the first one to fade Nebraska if I get a chance to fade them. I have no loyalty whatsoever, and being in this business 29 years has taken all the fun out of being a fan. You know, Kansas City fan too, because I grew up 3 hours from there. But at the end of the day, would you guys, since you've assessed Ohio State, Michigan, you've been in this business a long time, and you're a Big Ten guy, I would say this is the best team that Michigan has had since the Fab Five.
Yeah, I think so. Michigan obviously made that final with Trey Burke, but you know they made a nice run in that one. That team wasn't as good as this team. So no. I agree. This Michigan team has a really high upside. I think Michigan's had some good teams. You know, Beeline did a good job here. You know, but I think Juwan Howard has done better than anybody expected here to this point. And as far as Ohio State, you know, I do find it a little bit harder to bet against Ohio State in football. I just love Ohio State college football so much. The thing I will say, and I think you guys could see where I'm coming from on this one. For a couple of years there, I had Ohio State season tickets, and I'd go down there, you know, get up for the game, get ready for it. I find it kind of hard to do that because you miss so much else of what's going on a college football Saturday. You know, I love watching these games as a handicapper. If you only see one game live, you know, it kind of hurts you. So like you said, I find that the handicapping kind of takes away from the being a fan sometimes. And you just say, look, you know, I'm a fan, but I put that to the side.
So I'll slightly disagree with you. The team with Charlie Matthews, Mo Wagner, Mohamed Abdul Rahman, that Xavier Simpson, Jordan Poole, that was a fantastic team too.
Yeah, that was a good team.
I almost think that might be a little bit better than Trey Burke team, but either way, you have to just look at this program. They haven't taken a step back. Wisconsin did take a step back. You know, when they lost Bo Ryan, guard came in, they just couldn't recruit. Michigan could. Heck, Livers is from Milwaukee. What the heck's he doing going to Michigan? Well, that was a huge miss by Wisconsin there. We have a few minutes left here. We're quick going to give out our most likely dog to win outright. And I'll start here. And I don't know if Tony was able to pull one up. I told him about it right before it. But I'm going to go with Georgetown here. All right. Georgetown. They are facing a little bit overrated Seton Hall team. Okay. And this is going to be like a 6-point spread for Seton Hall, maybe 5 at Georgetown. So you're looking at probably a plus 200 dog here. And so this is a juicy one for you. Seton Hall's been on a nice run. They won 4 in a row, but the teams they've been playing against have had some really bad 3-point luck. Seton Hall ranks 264th in the nation, allowing 36.1% of threes to go in. But the last 3 teams they faced only shot 21.3% from 3. Where they needed to capitalize to beat Seton Hall, they couldn't. Georgetown, nice wins recently against Creighton. Nice win against Providence. Now they're home and desperate. They shoot the 3 at 35.8%. I like how they play fast. Home dog here We're going to take Georgetown around plus 175, plus 200. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I like Seton Hall as a team. I think Seton Hall has a pretty high upside, well coached, but I do think that Seton Hall is pretty highly valued at this point. We talked about how people remember what they just saw. Seton Hall's been playing really good. They're going to get knocked off one of these games. So yeah, I could see this one being a good look.
All right. Do you have any?
Well, I'll give you one tomorrow, and if you can catch Minnesota at home against Illinois as an underdog, which you probably will. Minnesota is a dog turd and a cantaloupe patch when it comes to being on the road, but at home they are a totally different animal for whatever reason, and I'm waiting for that line to come out. But they're going to be a slight home dog. Illinois is a great basketball team, really coming on at the right time of year. But I will give you a first. You said to maybe come up with a free pick for everybody. So my free pick for everybody here on the podcast is I follow another, not the Ohio State Buckeyes, but I do follow the Ohio Valley Conference in college basketball. I like covering the Big 12, Ohio Valley, the Missouri Valley especially. I like being out of those under the radar conferences. The Big Sky, some of these conferences, odds makers. But Belmont is one of the better teams in the mid-major ranks. They got a really good basketball team. They're taking on one of the worst teams in college basketball in Tennessee Tech, but they already beat them 88-67, laying 12.5. Now, they're going to be laying more than that. They're probably going to be laying around 18 in this game. Well, what you want to do is you want to cut that in half. Take Belmont on the first half line tomorrow against Tennessee Tech. Last game, the halftime score was 43-21. They'll have a double-digit lead in this game by halftime, but yet you're going to be able to get them probably at a high single-digit first half line. So something you might want to look at out of a small conference.
Ooh, I like that one. Kyle?
I like it. I like the under the radar. So I'm going to stay way under the radar here for mine. Merrimack and Bryant from the Northeast Conference. And
wow.
And those of you who have followed my plays know that these are where I've done the best in the long run. These totals, especially, that have been so far under the radar that some of the guys are like, "Hey, where's this game on TV?" This game's not on TV. So Merrimack and Bryant, though, Bryant has been the best team in the Northeast Conference. In the non-conference, they had some really nice wins. Merrimack, matchup zone. They play kind of a Syracuse type zone defense that really bothers a lot of teams in that conference. Bryant's been on a long COVID pause here. They're going to be favored by a lot of points, probably 6.5, 7-point favorite for Bryant. I think Merrimack has a chance of winning this game outright. This is a high variance game, so I don't love Merrimack +7 as much as I like taking this on the money line. I think Merrimack could lose by a decent amount, but I think they could win this game too. So I think Merrimack, with that defense the way it is, bothers a lot of teams in that conference. They beat Bryant one of the two games last year. Almost every Merrimack game is really close. So I'm going to take Merrimack on the money line here. We'll probably catch plus 225, 230, something like that.
Look at that. You parlay them all together. You can go on vacation, my friends. Great picks right there. Woo! Fantastic job, guys. We are out of time, though. Thank you so much for coming on, everyone. Real quick before we leave, Tony, where can our viewers find your information?
Well, you can find over at DocSports.com. And, of course, go to YouTube and just type in Tony George /Doc Sports. We do daily free pick videos there. And, of course, I'm doing 3 shows a week with Sean Salisbury over there. So that's where they can find me.
Kyle?
You can go to huntersportspicks.com, check out my premium plays there. Also sign up for the Free Picks newsletter if you haven't already. You sign up for that, you can get a free premium play just for signing up for that. So if you haven't done that, check that out over there at huntersportspicks.com.
And check us out at theoddsbreakers.com. If you guys have any questions for next week's show or just in general, feel free to tweet us all. Tony George Sports, at Kyle Hunter Picks, at the Odds Breakers. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Remember your ABCs. Always be capping.